will show you how to start and run a Zoom meeting with your students. So from the web version, click on My Account in the top right corner and click on Meetings on the left-hand side. You will notice all the meetings that you've previously scheduled. If you have the desktop software, you'll also notice all of today's meetings listed right on the home screen, and you can click on Meetings to see all the meetings that you have scheduled. I'm going to do it from the web version because we all have access to that, and I'm going to show you how it prompts you to use the desktop version. When you're ready to start your meeting with your students, you'll click Start, because remember, they can't get in without you. If they try to do it, it will tell them waiting for meeting host. So it is a little bit helpful to invite a co-teacher or a teaching assistant in case you're running a little bit late. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click Start Meeting. And you'll see it will prompt me to download and run the Zoom desktop software. I'm going to click Open in Zoom. There's my student. So it says at the bottom, Alana has entered the waiting room for this meeting. Should I admit her or should I see the waiting room? I'm just going to click on See Waiting Room. I can also click on Participants and it will show you one waiting, and there'll be a list of everyone that's waiting for you to let them in. So if it's a name that you don't recognize or an inappropriate name, just remove it. You just don't even need to deal with it. If it's someone that you know, you'll just click on Admit. And then your student joined your lesson. So I'm going to give you, I muted the other fake student. With the microphone mutes your audio, so I recommend that everyone has their audio muted unless they have something to say. Otherwise, we hear a lot of background noise. So I don't really like that. The stop video does just that. If you notice my picture with the bridge behind me and I click on it, it goes away and it replaces it with my name. So I'm going to keep that on. The fun thing behind me with the bridge, if you click on this little arrow next to the video camera, you will notice it says choose virtual background. And here you can choose any of the ones that they give you, or you can add your own. I'm just going to leave the grass for now. And we're going to keep going with our tour. So under security, there are a few different features. So lock meeting means the meeting's locked. No one else can get in. Who's ever here is here. But sometimes you might want to leave that open in case someone drops off by accident. They can't get back in. So I like to leave that open. And again, you'll have your waiting room so you can always let them in if they leave and come back. I always leave enable waiting room on. That's on by default. And I believe your district would have it on like that. Share screen. If you want students or participants to be able to share their screen with you, you have to check that. So your district might have that on by default. I'm not sure. But by default, only a host. So anyone that's a host can share their screen. If you want someone else to share their screen, just click on security and check that box. And then participants will be able to share their screen as well. I don't let them rename themselves because then they just get a little goofy and silly with it. And remove participant, I'll show you how to do that later. So basically, most of these things are done for you. You don't need to worry about these if your district set it up for you. Otherwise, in my other video, I talked to you about settings. Moving on, if you click on participants, you will notice a list of all of your participants. The button I love the most is mute all. It mutes everyone. I like everyone to be muted unless they have something to say, and then they can unmute. You can unmute your students. So if you work with tiny little kindergartners, they might not know how to unmute themselves. You can unmute them. So you just click on unmute. You're going to hear a little bit of background noise because my other computer is right next to me. So I'm going to go ahead and mute my fake student. Next to that, I can click on more, and you can ask them to start their video if they're not showing their video. You can make someone a host or a co-host. I wouldn't do that for a student, maybe for a teacher or teaching assistant. Rename, you could rename them. And you can, I'm going to name that one student. So you could give them a different name. More, you could put them in the waiting room. I really wouldn't probably use that feature. The feature I'd use more importantly is remove. If someone is misbehaving, I would simply remove them from the call and they can try to get back in, but guess what? They're going to go in the waiting room and you just won't let them back in. You'll just deal with the disciplinary issue at a later time and you won't let it affect your lesson. So I'm going to click on the participants tab to let that go away. Chat. I highly recommend using this with your class. If someone has a question, they type it in the chat. and everyone can see it. In the other video I showed you with the settings, I don't allow them to have private chats. It's like passing notes, talking about you or other students behind their back. I don't allow it for students, only for hosts. If you wanted to privately message a student, you could just click the drop down and click on your student's name, and you can write them a private message. Students shouldn't have that ability, only the teacher. So that is how you chat. We're going to talk about screen sharing. There's really only two that I want to talk about: the desktop and the whiteboard. When I click on the desktop and I click share, you can see everything on my desktop. So here was the Zoom desk tool. So you can type text. You can draw, and there's a few different tools. I'm just going to choose on a little bit thicker, and you could do a little laser or an arrow. There's an eraser. You could format the text. You can make it thicker. I'm sorry, the formatting of the text is down here, and this would apply to your lines. You could change the line width or color. You can customize any of those things in here. There's your typical undo and redo button. You can clear all drawings, my drawings, or all viewers' drawings, and you can also save this to view at a later date. So that's a whiteboard. I'm going to click stop sharing, and it's going to go back to my view. Just to point out, up at the top here, it says gallery view. This would show you all of your students. So I think it goes up to 25 now, but they're always increasing. So I could be wrong. It might be much more than that. Actually, 25, I'm lying. It's way more than that. I think it's way more. But you can see everyone that's in your meeting. I'm just going to keep going with the features. Polling, I'm not going to go over in this meeting. I'll do that in another video when I actually have people in it with me. But if I do click on polling, it's not a very spontaneous thing unless I made it ahead of time. So I definitely would have created my poll before my meeting and pulled it up in front of my students. You'll see that if I click add question, it will redirect me to Zoom and to my meeting. I'll have to add the questions in there. I would have done this ahead of time. I probably wouldn't have done this on the fly. As you can see, it's taking a very long time for me to do. Here it is, and I would have done it ahead of time. I'm not going to do it right now. I'm going to save that for another video. Moving on, breakout rooms. Again, I'm going to do that in another video, but simply you click on breakout rooms, and you could do it automatically or manually, and you can create your breakout rooms. I'll save that for another video when I actually have students in there with me. Reactions, your students can give a thumbs up, and it shows up on their screen, or they could clap. You could say if everyone understands, give a thumbs up, or you could actually do it visually too, so you could see all the thumbs and you can hold them up. So those are just how you can get your students to interact with you. When you're all done with your meeting, you will click end meeting. And most importantly, you're going to end this meeting for everyone, not just leave the meeting. Because if you leave the meeting, then your students are unsupervised versus ending the meeting for all, which will end it for everyone. And that is how you start and run a Zoom meeting.